my child's anniversary, my sibling threw cake in his face as a prank. And when I defended my son, they called it just a joke, which sparked a massive scandal and tore our entire family apart. I need to tell you about the most insane family revenge story you'll ever hear. What started as my kid's 14th birthday party turned into me systematically destroying my spoiled sister's entire existence over the course of 9 months. This woman thought she could humiliate my son and get away with it because daddy always protected her throughout her entire life. She was absolutely dead wrong about that assumption. By the end of this saga, she's working minimum wage at a department store and begging me for help, while living in her childhood bedroom at 28 years old. I'm still getting texts from various family members asking me to show mercy and help her out of the situation she created for herself. Yeah, right. You mess with my kid, you get exactly what you deserve, and I don't apologize for protecting my family. Some of you might think I went too far with my response, but wait until you hear what this entitled princess actually did to my son at his own birthday party. Fair warning, this story is quite long, but trust me when I say the payoff is absolutely worth every word. Grab some popcorn because this gets incredibly wild. Let me set the stage so you understand just how messed up my family dynamics were before I fixed them permanently. My name is Blake, and I'm 38 years old. I work as a master HVAC technician here in Memphis, Tennessee. After graduating high school, I wasn't entirely sure what direction to take my life, so I made the decision to enlist in the Army for 5 years. Looking back, it was the best decision I ever made for my future and my family. I spent most of my military service doing mechanical work on various military bases across the country, which taught me invaluable skills like discipline and systematic problem solving. Most importantly, those years in the service taught me how to stay completely calm under pressure while methodically dismantling problems piece by piece. Those particular skills would prove to be absolutely invaluable later in this story when I needed to handle my sister's behavior systematically. When I got out of the service, I used my GI Bill benefits to get certified as a master HVAC technician and started my own small contracting business. Now I specialize in commercial heating and cooling systems for office buildings, hospitals, and manufacturing plants throughout the Memphis area. It's steady work that pays really good money, and I've built a solid reputation for solving complex mechanical problems that other contractors simply can't handle. The work requires incredible attention to detail, patience, and the ability to trace problems back to their source systematically. Again, these were skills that would come in extremely handy when dealing with my sister Chelsea's behavior. My wife Jessica is 36 years old and works as an ICU nurse at one of the major hospitals in Memphis. She pulls in decent money too, and she's honestly tougher than most men I know. Having to deal with everything from heart attacks to serious trauma cases during every single shift has given her incredible strength and perspective. Our son Tyler just turned 14 years old, and this kid is absolutely brilliant beyond his years. While other kids his age are playing video games all day, Tyler spends his time building robots and learning various programming languages on his own. The kid is already talking seriously about studying engineering at the University of Memphis, and I absolutely believe he'll get there with his intelligence and work ethic. Now, here's where things get incredibly complicated, and you'll start to understand the toxic family dynamics I was dealing with. My half-sister Chelsea is 28 years old and represents the most spoiled human being you'll ever encounter in your entire life. This woman has never worked a real job in her entire privileged existence. She calls herself an Instagram influencer with about 22,000 followers, but in reality, she's just a professional leech who posts photos of herself wearing expensive clothes that daddy bought her without question. Chelsea lives in a luxury apartment in downtown Memphis that costs $3,600 per month, and my father pays for it without ever questioning the expense. We're talking about a high-rise building complete with a doorman, fitness center, and rooftop pool. The kind of place that young professionals work their tails off just to afford. She drives a brand new white BMW X5 that Robert bought her outright for her 27th birthday, complete with the premium package and custom leather interior. The monthly insurance alone costs more than most people spend on groceries for their entire family. Her daily routine is absolutely ridiculous when you really break it down. She rolls out of bed around noon every single day, then spends 3 full hours getting ready and taking selfies for her social media accounts. After that extensive preparation, she heads out for expensive brunches that cost $50 to $70 per person. Following brunch, it's off to shopping at designer stores in the Germantown area, where she'll drop $900 on a single handbag without even blinking an eye. Her evenings are spent at trendy rooftop bars and upscale restaurants, all carefully documented for her Instagram feed to maintain her fake lifestyle image. She's burning through at least $7,000 a month of Robert's hard-earned money, and that's not even counting the rent and car expenses. All of this extravagant lifestyle is funded entirely by our father, Robert, who makes about $120,000 a year running construction crews for a mid-sized development company. The man works 65-hour weeks in all kinds of weather conditions, dealing with demanding clients and impossible deadlines just to fund his daughter's lifestyle that would make a Kardashian jealous. Robert is 60 years old and has been enabling Chelsea's behavior since her biological mother died in a tragic car accident when Chelsea was only 9 years old. The guilt from that terrible tragedy has absolutely consumed him over the years. He genuinely believes that if he just buys Chelsea enough expensive stuff and gives her enough money every month, somehow it will make up for her losing her mother at such a young age. What he's actually accomplished is creating a complete monster who thinks the entire world owes her everything she wants without having to work for any of it. Every single time Chelsea wants something, Daddy's wallet opens immediately without any questions asked. New car because her old one is embarrassing compared to her friends' vehicles? No problem at all. Here's $48,000 for a BMW. Apartment rent going up because of market conditions? Don't worry about it. Daddy will cover the increase without complaint. Want to take a week-long vacation to Miami with friends she met on social media? Sure thing. Here's $3,500 in spending money for the trip. The man has literally never said no to her about anything involving money in her entire adult life. I've watched Robert work double shifts and weekend overtime just to keep up with Chelsea's constantly increasing spending demands. He's postponed his own retirement plans multiple times, put off necessary home repairs that his house desperately needs, and even borrowed against his 401k retirement fund to continue funding her lifestyle. The absolutely crazy part is that he acts like this is completely normal behavior, and anyone who questions it is being unreasonable. My stepmother, Patricia, works part-time at a local dentist's office and basically stays quiet about the whole situation with Chelsea's spending. She knows Chelsea's behavior is completely ridiculous and unsustainable, but she doesn't want to rock the boat with Robert and cause family drama. Patricia will complain to me privately about Chelsea's spending habits and entitled attitude, but she never speaks up when it actually matters or when Robert is making decisions about giving Chelsea more money. Then there's my grandmother, Dorothy, who's 81 years old and honestly the toughest woman I've ever known in my life. Dorothy worked construction her entire career, starting as one of the very first female crane operators in Tennessee back in the 1970s when that industry was completely dominated by men. She fought for every single dollar she earned throughout her career and saved enough money to buy a beautiful house worth $680,000 in the best part of Memphis. Dorothy doesn't tolerate nonsense from anyone, regardless of their age or relationship to her. She's been watching Chelsea's behavior with increasing disgust for years, just waiting for the right moment to do something about it. Finally, there's my best friend Derek, who served with me in Afghanistan and literally saved my life more than once during our deployment over there. After we both got out of the military, Derek went into private security and corporate investigations, specializing in background checks and fraud detection for major companies throughout the region. This guy can find out absolutely anything about anyone using completely legal methods like social media analysis, public record searches, and financial pattern recognition. He's like a bloodhound when it comes to tracking down information that people desperately want to keep hidden from authorities. Derek's also got this incredible sense of timing that I've always admired. He always seems to show up with exactly the right solution at exactly the right moment when you need it most. During our military deployment, he was the guy who could somehow procure whatever equipment we needed for our missions, knew which officials to talk to for getting permissions, and always had a backup plan ready when things inevitably went sideways. Those skills translated perfectly to civilian life, and now he makes serious money helping corporations investigate internal fraud and security breaches. What makes Derek truly dangerous to people who cross him is his combination of military training, professional investigative skills, and complete loyalty to the people he cares about. When someone messes with his friends or family members, Derek takes it extremely personally, and he never forgets a slight. He's been quietly watching Chelsea's behavior for several years now, partly out of professional curiosity and partly because he never trusted her entitled attitude or the way she treats people who can't do anything for her. The family dynamics had been getting progressively worse for several years leading up to this incident. Chelsea would do increasingly outrageous things for attention and social media content. Robert would immediately make excuses for her behavior, no matter how inappropriate it was. And the rest of us would just shake our heads and try our best to avoid the inevitable drama that followed her everywhere. But what happened at Tyler's birthday party crossed a line that absolutely couldn't be uncrossed, and it changed everything permanently. About 7 months before Tyler's birthday party, we had a family barbecue for Labor Day at my parents' house, and everything was going perfectly until it came time to cut my father's birthday cake. The whole family was gathered around the dining room table, and I was leaning down to help Robert blow out the candles when Chelsea came charging up from behind me like she was making a football tackle. She grabbed my shoulders with both hands and shoved my face directly into the chocolate cake with enough force to make my teeth hurt and my neck snap back painfully. This wasn't a gentle push or a playful shove between siblings. She put her full body weight behind it like she was trying to drive my face completely through the table. Frosting went everywhere, coating my hair and filling my nostrils, getting into my eyes and mouth in the most uncomfortable way possible. My clean button-down shirt was completely ruined, with chocolate cake ground into the fabric so deep that it would never come out no matter how many times Jessica washed it. The entire family erupted in laughter like it was the funniest thing they'd ever witnessed in their entire lives. Robert was doubled over laughing and slapping his knee like it was a professional comedy show. Patricia was giggling uncontrollably and taking pictures with her phone to capture the moment. Even some of the neighbors who had come over for the barbecue were chuckling and shaking their heads like, "That Chelsea is such a character," and "She's always doing something crazy." But when I wiped the cake and frosting out of my eyes and looked around the room, the first thing I saw was Tyler standing about 12 feet away with this look of absolute terror on his face. The kid had gone completely pale and was just staring at me with these wide, frightened eyes like he couldn't process what he had just witnessed. Tyler had never seen an adult physically assault another adult like that before, and even though everyone was calling it a harmless joke, the kid looked genuinely traumatized by the whole experience. I could actually see him trying to process what he just watched his aunt do to his father in front of everyone. That night, while Jessica was giving Tyler his bath, he suddenly asked her out of nowhere, "Is Aunt Chelsea going to do that to me at my birthday party?" When Jessica told me what he'd said, it felt like someone had punched me directly in the stomach with full force. My 14-year-old son was already worried about defending himself at his own birthday party because of my sister's unpredictable and violent behavior. That's not normal childhood anxiety, and it's definitely not okay for any kid to feel that way about family celebrations. I called Chelsea that same evening around 9 o'clock, trying my best to keep my voice calm and reasonable, even though I was still absolutely furious about what had happened earlier. "Listen to me very carefully," I told her, making sure to speak slowly and clearly so there would be absolutely no misunderstanding about what I was saying. "What you did today was completely inappropriate, disrespectful, and not funny in any way whatsoever. If you ever try something like that with Tyler at his birthday party, we're going to have some serious problems between us." Chelsea's response was exactly what I expected from someone who's never faced real consequences for her actions in her entire privileged life. She actually had the nerve to laugh at me with this dismissive, condescending laugh like I was being completely ridiculous about the whole situation. "Oh my goodness, Blake, you're being so dramatic and uptight about everything," she said in that annoying tone she uses when she thinks she's being clever. "It was just a harmless joke between family members. Tyler needs to learn how to have fun and not be so serious and boring all the time like his dad." "I'm not joking around here, Chelsea," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "My son's birthday party is completely off limits for your attention-seeking stunts and social media content creation. Do you understand me?" "Whatever, Blake, you're such a total buzzkill about everything," she shot back immediately. "That's exactly why nobody wants to hang out with you anymore at family events. You take absolutely everything way too seriously. No wonder Jessica looks miserable half the time. Being married to someone with no sense of humor must be absolutely exhausting for her." The fact that she brought my wife into the conversation really set me off, but I managed to keep my cool and stay focused on the main issue. "Chelsea, I'm warning you one final time. Stay away from Tyler's cake. Stay away from Tyler completely if you can't control yourself." "God, you're so paranoid and controlling," she replied with obvious annoyance. "I'm not going to do anything to precious little Tyler." You act like he's made of glass or something fragile. Kids are way tougher than you think they are, Blake. She hung up on me before I could respond, and I could actually hear her laughing as she ended the call. I should have realized right then and there that Chelsea had absolutely zero intention of respecting any boundary I tried to set with her. This is a woman who's never been told no in her entire privileged life, and she wasn't about to start listening to reason now. Looking back, I wish I had just uninvited her from Tyler's party right then and there. It would have saved everyone a tremendous amount of pain and drama. But I thought surely she wouldn't be stupid enough to mess with a child's birthday celebration after being explicitly warned about the consequences. I seriously underestimated just how selfish and attention-hungry my sister really was. Tyler's 14th birthday finally arrived, and this kid had been meticulously planning every single detail for months leading up to the big day. He's really into robotics, engineering, and computer programming, so we decided on a science and technology theme that would actually engage his friends and showcase his interests, rather than throwing some generic kid party that wouldn't mean anything to him personally. Jessica went absolutely all out, transforming our backyard into this incredible science lab setup that looked like something straight out of a major university. She installed professional LED displays showing detailed circuit diagrams, set up working robot demonstrations that Tyler had programmed himself over the past several weeks, and even created a safe chemistry station where kids could do hands-on experiments and watch different chemical reactions happen in real time. We rented professional science equipment from a local educational supply company, brought in a high-quality telescope for stargazing activities, and set up multiple coding stations where kids could program simple games and see their creations come to life immediately. The whole setup probably cost us close to $900 when everything was said and done. But seeing Tyler's face light up as everything came together piece by piece was worth every single penny we spent. This wasn't just a birthday party. It was a celebration of our son's intelligence, creativity, and passion for learning, and we wanted it to be absolutely perfect for him. The centerpiece of the entire party was Tyler's birthday cake, which he had designed himself using actual engineering software that he'd learned to use on his own. It was an incredible 3-layer masterpiece that looked exactly like a computer circuit board, complete with working LED lights, embedded throughout the frosting that actually lit up in different patterns that Tyler had programmed specifically for his birthday. The cake had functioning switches, blinking components that served actual purposes, and even a small digital display showing his initials in scrolling text. We had it custom-made by a specialty bakery that normally does cakes for tech companies and major engineering firms throughout the Memphis area. The total cost for this amazing cake was $280, which was definitely expensive. But Tyler was so incredibly proud of this cake that represented everything he loved about technology and engineering. He spent the entire morning taking detailed photographs from every possible angle, excitedly explaining the technical aspects and programming details to his friends as they arrived throughout the afternoon. You could see the genuine pride and joy on his face as he showed off something he had created with his own mind and skills. We invited 18 of Tyler's smartest friends from school and his robotics club, kids who shared his genuine interest in science, technology, and building things with their own hands. These were really good kids from families that valued education, creativity, and intellectual curiosity over social media, popularity, or material possessions. The party was going absolutely perfectly from the very moment it started. Kids were genuinely amazed by the robot demonstrations and kept asking Tyler technical questions about how everything worked. They loved getting their hands dirty with the science experiments and were actually learning real chemistry concepts while having fun. Everyone was having an incredible time learning and exploring together, creating memories that would last for years. Then Chelsea showed up and immediately started ruining everything we had worked so hard to create. At exactly 3:20 in the afternoon, her bright red BMW X5 came screeching into our driveway with music blasting so loud that neighbors 4 houses down turned to see what was causing all the commotion. Chelsea stepped out of the car like she was making a grand entrance at some Hollywood premiere, clearly expecting all attention to immediately shift to her. She was wearing the most ridiculously inappropriate outfit imaginable for a 14-year-old's birthday party. She had on this tiny crop top that showed way too much skin for a family event with children present, a mini skirt that barely covered anything important, and stiletto heels that were completely absurd for a backyard party with kids running around on grass and uneven ground. "Where's my absolute favorite nephew in the whole world?" she shouted loud enough for half the neighborhood to hear, striking a dramatic pose like she was expecting photographers to start taking pictures. Aunt Chelsea is here to make this party absolutely amazing and unforgettable for everyone. I immediately walked over to intercept her before she could create any more of a scene in front of Tyler's friends and their parents. Chelsea, remember our conversation from last week? Tyler's birthday is about Tyler and his interests, not about you or your Instagram content. She waved me off dismissively with those ridiculous 4-inch fake nails she's always getting done at expensive salons downtown. Oh my God, Blake, relax and stop being such a control freak about everything. I'm just here to wish Tyler a happy birthday and have some fun with the family. You're being paranoid and dramatic like always. For the next hour and a half, Chelsea systematically made the entire party about herself instead of Tyler and his friends. She kept interrupting the science activities to pose for selfies with the decorations and expensive equipment we had rented. She was constantly trying to get the 14-year-old boys to pay attention to her instead of the educational demonstrations we had planned so carefully. Every 7 minutes, she was posting new Instagram stories about what an amazing and fun aunt she was, making sure to get herself prominently featured in every single shot. She kept asking the kids to include her in their experiments and projects, not because she was genuinely interested in science or learning, but because she wanted fresh content for her social media accounts. She was treating my son's birthday party like her personal photo shoot and content creation opportunity. It was absolutely infuriating to watch as a parent. Jessica kept shooting me looks that clearly said, "Why did we let her come to this?" The worst part was watching Tyler's face during all this chaos. Instead of enjoying his own birthday party that he had planned for months, my son kept glancing nervously at Chelsea like he was waiting for something terrible to happen. The kid couldn't even relax and have fun at his own birthday celebration because he was worried about what his aunt might do next. Finally, after what felt like hours of this behavior, it was time for the main event: cutting the birthday cake. All 18 kids gathered around the table where Tyler's LED circuit board cake was displayed in all its technological glory. Tyler stood in front of his masterpiece with the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face, practically glowing with pride and excitement. Jessica lit the 14 candles carefully, making sure not to interfere with any of the electronic components, and all the kids started singing "Happy Birthday" in this sweet, enthusiastic chorus that filled our entire backyard with joy. Tyler closed his eyes and took a deep breath, ready to make his birthday wish and blow out the candles in this perfect moment that every parent dreams about. In that moment, he looked absolutely perfect. A happy kid celebrating with his friends, surrounded by everything he loved most in the world. This was exactly like every birthday celebration should be, filled with genuine happiness and the innocent joy of childhood. That's when Chelsea struck without any warning. She came charging forward like she was making a football tackle, moving with shocking speed and violence. She grabbed Tyler from behind and drove his face straight down into that beautiful $280 custom cake with vicious, deliberate force. The sound of his face hitting the cake echoed across the entire backyard like a gunshot. Frosting and LED components exploded in every direction, covering Tyler, the table, and several nearby children in cake debris and electronic parts. But here's the part that still makes me see red with absolute fury when I think about it. One of those LED lights was still hot from being powered on during the demonstration, and it burned Tyler's forehead when his face was violently slammed into the cake. This wasn't a serious burn that would require hospitalization, but it was enough to leave an angry red mark on my son's skin that was clearly visible to everyone at the party. The entire party went dead silent in the most horrible way imaginable. 18 kids stood there in complete shock and disbelief, their faces frozen in expressions of terror and confusion. Several of the younger ones immediately burst into tears because they'd never seen an adult violently assault a child like that in their entire lives. Tyler just stood there completely frozen in place, with cake, frosting, and electronic components dripping down his face and onto his favorite shirt. This angry red burn mark was clearly visible on his forehead from the hot LED component, and you could see the pain and confusion in his eyes. Then, my son started sobbing. Not just regular crying, but these heartbroken, soul-crushing sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. It was like his entire world had just collapsed around him in the span of 4 seconds. This was supposed to be the happiest day of his year, the culmination of months of planning and excitement. And Chelsea had destroyed it completely for social media content and attention. And Chelsea, this absolute monster, started laughing hysterically like she had just witnessed the funniest thing in human history. She immediately pulled out her phone to start taking selfies and videos with the destroyed cake in the background, completely ignoring my traumatized, burned, crying son. "Oh my god, this is going to get so many likes and shares on Instagram," she said while recording herself with obvious excitement. "Tyler, stop crying and look up here at the camera. Smile for Aunt Chelsea's Instagram story. This is going to be absolutely hilarious content for my followers." She was literally filming my traumatized, burned, crying son for her social media accounts while cake and frosting dripped down his face. The complete lack of empathy or human decency was beyond anything I could have imagined, even from someone as selfish as Chelsea. I have never been closer to completely losing control in my entire life. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I shouted louder than I've ever yelled at anyone in my life, my voice echoing across the entire neighborhood and probably reaching houses 3 blocks away. "Oh my gosh, seriously, it's just a harmless joke between family members," Chelsea replied with that same dismissive attitude, still holding her phone up to record everything. "You need to chill out and stop being so uptight about everything. Tyler's totally fine. Look at him. Kids need to learn how to take a joke and not be such babies about everything that happens to them." The kids at the party were absolutely traumatized by what they had just witnessed. Several parents had already arrived to pick up their children for the evening and witnessed this entire horrific scene unfold in real time. They were exchanging these uncomfortable glances and whispering to each other, clearly disturbed by what they had just seen an adult do to a child. A few parents immediately gathered their kids and left without saying goodbye, obviously wanting to get their children away from Chelsea as quickly as possible before something else happened. That's when my 81-year-old grandmother Dorothy stood up from her lawn chair, and everything in the atmosphere changed immediately. When Dorothy stands up and speaks, the entire world stops what it's doing to listen. This woman commanded construction crews for 42 years in an industry completely dominated by men who didn't want to take orders from anyone, let alone a woman. When she talks, people listen with complete attention. And when she's angry, smart people get out of her way immediately. "Chelsea," Dorothy said, in this voice that could cut through steel and concrete, "you were specifically warned not to do this exact thing." Chelsea immediately went into defensive mode, but you could tell she was nervous about grandmother's tone. "Grandma Dorothy, it was just a harmless joke between family members. Everyone's being way too dramatic about this whole situation. Tyler's fine. He's just being sensitive. Look at that boy's face," Dorothy commanded with absolute authority in her voice. "Does he look fine to you?" Tyler was still sobbing in Jessica's arms, with cake and frosting matted in his hair and that angry red burn mark clearly visible on his forehead for everyone to see. Half the kids at the party were crying or asking their parents to take them home immediately. The party was completely destroyed, and the atmosphere had shifted from joyful celebration to traumatic disaster in less than 5 minutes. Dorothy turned to face my father with a look I'd never seen before in my entire life, a mixture of disappointment, disgust, and cold fury that seemed to radiate from her entire being. "Robert, you see your grandson crying? You see that burn on his face? You see how your daughter just destroyed a child's birthday celebration in front of all his friends?" My father immediately jumped to Chelsea's defense, just like he'd been doing her entire privileged life without fail. "Mom, kids need to learn how to take a joke and handle these situations. Chelsea didn't mean any harm by what she did. Tyler just needs to toughen up a little bit and not be so sensitive about everything." Dorothy stared at him for what felt like the longest 12 seconds of my entire life. The silence was so thick you could have cut it with a knife, and everyone in the backyard seemed to be holding their breath waiting for her response. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, but absolutely deadly in its intensity. "I see exactly what kind of man you've become, Robert. And I see exactly what kind of daughter you've raised with your enabling behavior." She grabbed her purse from the table beside her chair and started walking toward our back gate with purpose and determination. Before leaving, she turned around one final time and looked directly at Chelsea with eyes that could have melted steel. "You just made the biggest mistake of your entitled little life, young lady. I hope those Instagram likes were worth what's coming next." The way she said it sent actual chills down my spine and made everyone in the backyard uncomfortable. Dorothy doesn't make empty threats, and she doesn't say things she doesn't mean. When my grandmother makes a promise like that, you can take it to the bank. Chelsea had just declared war on the wrong person and she didn't even realize it yet. We ended the party immediately after Dorothy left. Half the parents were already uncomfortable and asking if Tyler needed medical attention for the burn on his forehead. while the other half were quietly gathering their kids' things and leaving early to avoid any more drama. It was the most embarrassing and heartbreaking moment of my life as a parent, watching my son's special day get completely destroyed by my selfish sister's need for social media attention. That night, after we got Tyler cleaned up and had the burn treated by our family doctor to make sure it wasn't serious, Derek called me with that tone in his voice that meant business. "I heard about what happened at the party, brother. Chelsea finally messed with the wrong family member, didn't she?" "I don't know what to do, man," I replied, feeling completely exhausted and defeated. Jessica's absolutely furious about the whole situation. Tyler's traumatized and keeps asking why Aunt Chelsea hurt him. And Chelsea's acting like she did absolutely nothing wrong. She's actually posting about it on Instagram like it was hilarious content for her followers. "Give it some time," Derek said with confidence in his voice. Dorothy's not the kind of woman who lets things slide when it comes to family. Something tells me Chelsea's about to learn a very expensive lesson about consequences and what happens when you mess with the wrong people. Derek was absolutely right about that prediction, but none of us could have anticipated just how thoroughly Dorothy was about to destroy Chelsea's entire privileged world. 4 days later, Dorothy called a mandatory family meeting at her house, and she showed up with her longtime family attorney who brought a briefcase full of legal documents that immediately made everyone nervous about what was coming. Dorothy didn't waste any time with small talk or pleasantries when everyone had gathered in her living room. She got straight to the point with military precision and authority. "I'm making major changes to my will effective immediately. Robert, you're being completely removed as a beneficiary from my estate." My father's face went white as a sheet, and you could actually see the blood drain from his features. "Mom, you can't be serious about this decision. That house is worth $680,000. I've been counting on that inheritance for my retirement planning. You should have thought about that before you raised a daughter who thinks hurting children is acceptable entertainment," Dorothy replied with ice-cold authority in her voice. "And before you defended her behavior when she burned your grandson's face at his own birthday party." She turned to face Chelsea, who was sitting there looking confused and shocked, like she couldn't understand why her actions might have serious consequences. "Chelsea, you have exactly 8 days to write a sincere handwritten apology letter to Tyler and pay for his medical treatment and therapy sessions. If you fail to do both of those things, you'll also be completely removed from my will permanently." Chelsea's mouth dropped open in complete shock and disbelief. "Grandma Dorothy, I don't understand why everyone's so mad about this whole situation. It was just a stupid cake that can be replaced. Tyler's fine now. He's not even hurt that badly. Kids bounce back from everything. Just a stupid cake?" Dorothy repeated with absolute ice in her voice that could have frozen hell itself. "That cake your nephew spent months planning and designing with his own hands? Those burns on his face from your selfish stunt? The trauma you caused him in front of all his friends at his own birthday celebration? All of that is just stupid to you?" The attorney began reading the terms of the new will in his official legal voice. "Under the revised document, I would inherit 42% of Dorothy's substantial estate. Jessica would receive 22% for being an excellent daughter-in-law and mother. Tyler would receive 26% to ensure his college education and future were secure. Patricia would get the remaining 10% for staying loyal to the family. Chelsea and Robert would receive absolutely nothing from the $680,000 estate." Chelsea started crying these obviously fake tears that she'd been using to manipulate people since she was a small child. "This isn't fair at all. I'm family too. You can't just cut me out because of one little mistake that didn't even hurt anyone seriously." Dorothy looked her dead in the eye without an ounce of sympathy or compassion. "Family doesn't humiliate children for social media attention. Family doesn't burn kids' faces for Instagram likes and content creation. You're not family. You're a spoiled brat who's never learned that actions have consequences in the real world." My father jumped up from his chair, his face red with anger and desperation. "Mom, you're making a huge mistake that you'll regret later. I've taken care of you for years when you needed help. Chelsea's just young and made an error in judgment that can be forgiven. I took care of myself for 81 years, Robert," Dorothy replied with finality. "And Chelsea's not young anymore. She's 28 years old and old enough to know that hurting children is wrong. There's no excuse for what she did." Robert stormed out of the house, slamming the front door so hard it shook the windows and rattled the picture frames on the walls. Chelsea followed him immediately afterward, sobbing dramatically and shouting about how unfair everything was and how nobody understood her side of the story. 8 days passed without any communication from Chelsea. She didn't write any apology letter to Tyler, and she certainly didn't offer to pay for his medical treatment or therapy sessions. Instead, she doubled down on her behavior on social media, posting Instagram stories about toxic family members who can't take a harmless joke and drama queens who blow everything completely out of proportion for attention. When the deadline expired, Dorothy made the will changes completely official and permanent. Chelsea and Robert were permanently cut out of a $680,000 inheritance because Chelsea couldn't bring herself to write a simple apology letter to the child she had hurt and traumatized. But that was just the opening move in what would become the complete and systematic destruction of Chelsea's entire privileged lifestyle. This is where Derek really proved his worth as the best friend a guy could ask for in a crisis situation. You see, when you work in private security and background investigations for major corporations across the country, you develop very specific skills for finding detailed information about people and uncovering financial irregularities that others might miss. Derek had been quietly keeping tabs on Chelsea's finances and lifestyle for several years now, partly out of professional curiosity about how someone could maintain such an expensive lifestyle without any visible income, and partly because he never trusted her entitled attitude or the dismissive way she treated people who couldn't do anything for her. "Blake," he told me over coffee one afternoon about a week after Tyler's birthday disaster, "your sister's been committing serious federal tax fraud for at least 4 years running, and I have all the documentation to prove it." Here's what Derek had discovered through completely legal research methods and public record searches that anyone could access with the right knowledge and persistence. Chelsea had been filing tax returns with the IRS claiming her Instagram business as her primary source of income, while simultaneously having Robert pay for literally every single expense in her entire life without reporting any of that financial support as taxable income. She was claiming extensive business deductions for her luxury apartment rent, BMW lease payments, designer clothes, expensive dinners at upscale restaurants, luxury vacations to places like Miami and California, spa treatments, cosmetic procedures, and basically everything else she could think of. Meanwhile, she was reporting almost no actual taxable income to the IRS on her annual returns. Essentially, she was having her cake and eating it too, claiming to be a struggling small business owner living in poverty for tax purposes, while actually living like a millionaire socialite entirely on daddy's money without paying taxes on any of it. This is textbook tax fraud that the IRS takes extremely seriously, especially when it involves people flaunting expensive lifestyles on social media while claiming poverty on their tax returns. Derek had documented everything meticulously over several years. He had bank transfer records from Robert to Chelsea showing thousands of dollars in monthly payments, credit card statements showing who actually paid for what expenses, social media posts proving that her lifestyle didn't match her reported income in any way. The evidence was overwhelming and absolutely bulletproof from a legal standpoint. "The IRS loves cases like this," Derek explained with a satisfied grin on his face. Clear documentation of fraud, easy to prove with social media evidence, and guaranteed penalties and interest that add up quickly. She's looking at owing back taxes, penalties, and interest that could easily hit $75,000 or more when everything is calculated. We submitted an anonymous tip to the IRS with a 45-page evidence packet that Derek had prepared with professional thoroughness. The audit notice arrived at Chelsea's apartment exactly 14 days later, but we were just getting started with our systematic approach. Derek discovered that Robert had been making Chelsea's BMW lease payments directly from his construction company's business account, and incorrectly categorizing the payments as a company vehicle expense for tax purposes. Since Chelsea wasn't an employee of Robert's construction company and used the car purely for personal purposes, like shopping and going to restaurants, this was clear business expense fraud that violated IRS regulations. Another anonymous tip to the IRS, this time targeting Robert's business specifically, resulted in a separate audit of his company's financial records. Next, we found out that Chelsea's luxury apartment complex had very strict lease terms that explicitly prohibited any commercial business activities from being conducted in residential units. Chelsea had been running her Instagram business from the apartment for over 3 years, including photo shoots with professional equipment, product demonstrations for sponsors, and meetings with potential business partners. She'd been violating her lease agreement consistently since she moved in, and we had 3 years of social media posts as evidence of the commercial activities. One anonymous complaint to the property management company, along with screenshots of Chelsea's Instagram posts proving ongoing commercial activity, resulted in an immediate lease violation notice and eviction proceedings that she couldn't fight. The final nail in the coffin was Chelsea's favorite medical spa, where she got regular cosmetic procedures that she posted about constantly on Instagram to show off her lifestyle. Derek discovered that the spa was operating without proper state licensing and had been performing procedures they weren't legally allowed to offer to customers. One detailed complaint to the Tennessee Department of Health, with Chelsea's own Instagram posts as evidence of the illegal procedures being performed, resulted in the spa being shut down permanently by state authorities. Chelsea's name appeared prominently in the official state investigation report as a witness to the illegal activities, which became public record. Within 7 weeks of Tyler's birthday party disaster, Chelsea was facing an absolute avalanche of legal and financial problems that she had no idea how to handle. She was dealing with a comprehensive IRS audit, with potential back taxes, penalties, and interest exceeding $75,000. She had immediate eviction proceedings from her luxury apartment for serious lease violations that she couldn't contest. She lost complete access to her BMW when Robert could no longer afford the monthly lease payments due to his own mounting tax problems with his business. She faced public embarrassment and humiliation when her favorite medical spa got permanently shut down, with her name prominently featured in the official state investigation report that anyone could read online. On top of all that, she had suffered the total and permanent loss of her substantial inheritance from Dorothy's $680,000 estate. She was experiencing the complete loss of her entire social media following as people learned about her behavior toward children and her legal problems. Chelsea's perfect little world was crumbling faster than she could post about it on Instagram, and there was absolutely nothing Daddy's money could do to fix the situation this time. The phone calls started about 12 weeks later, and they were absolutely beautiful music to my ears after everything Chelsea had put my family through. The first call came from Patricia, who was crying so hard I could barely understand what she was trying to tell me through her sobs and emotional breakdown. "Blake, please, you have to help us with this situation," she managed to get out between tears. "Robert might lose his entire business because of the tax penalties and interest charges. Chelsea's moved back in with us because she got evicted from her apartment. We don't know what to do or where to turn for help." "Maybe you should have thought about that before Robert spent 22 years enabling Chelsea's behavior and defending her when she hurt my son," I replied calmly. "You all made your choices when you decided that Chelsea's feelings were more important than Tyler's safety. Please, Robert's learned his lesson from all of this. Chelsea's learned her lesson too. Can't you talk to Dorothy? Can't you help us figure out how to fix this situation before it gets even worse?" "Patricia, Chelsea burned my son's face and destroyed his birthday party in front of all his friends, and Robert immediately defended her behavior. You all chose your side when that happened. Then, Robert called me directly, and this conversation was honestly the sweetest revenge I've ever experienced in my entire life. This man who had spent years telling me I was too hard on Chelsea and that I needed to lighten up and let kids be kids was literally begging me for help with the consequences of his own enabling behavior. Son, I know I made some serious mistakes in how I handled everything," he began, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. "Chelsea's moved back home because she can't afford rent anywhere decent. The IRS is garnishing my business bank accounts to collect on the penalties. I might lose the house if I can't get caught up on these penalties and back taxes. Please, can you talk to your grandmother? Can you help us navigate this situation? Dad, Chelsea burned my son's face at his birthday party, and you immediately defended her behavior," I reminded him. "You told me Tyler needed to toughen up and learn to take a joke. You chose Chelsea over your grandson when it mattered most. I was wrong, Blake. I was completely wrong about everything," he admitted, with genuine remorse in his voice. "I see that now. Chelsea's behavior was completely unacceptable, and I should have stopped enabling her years ago instead of making excuses." "Keep talking," I said, wanting to hear more of this long overdue admission. "She's working at a department store now, making minimum wage and hating every minute of it. She's absolutely miserable with her new reality. She cries every day about losing her apartment and her car and her lifestyle. She knows she messed up badly, and she's finally facing real consequences for her actions." "Good," I replied without sympathy. "Maybe she's finally learning what consequences feel like for the first time in her privileged life." But the most satisfying phone call came from Chelsea herself 4 days later, and it was everything I had been waiting to hear for years. Gone was the entitled, arrogant attitude that had defined her entire personality for 28 years. Gone were the fake tears and manipulation tactics she had used to get her way since childhood. This was a completely broken woman who had finally hit absolute rock bottom and realized that Daddy couldn't fix this problem with his credit card. "Blake, I'm so incredibly sorry about what I did to Tyler at his birthday party," she began. And for the first time in my life, she actually sounded sincere. "I'm really, truly, genuinely sorry from the bottom of my heart. I know what I did was wrong and cruel and completely unforgivable. Tyler didn't deserve any of that treatment. He's just a sweet kid who was trying to have a nice birthday party with his friends, and I ruined everything for him because I wanted attention." "Keep going, Chelsea. I'm listening," I said, wanting to hear everything she had to say. "I desperately need help with this IRS situation and all these legal problems. I can't afford an attorney to represent me properly. I don't know how to handle any of these legal problems or paperwork. Everyone in the family is mad at me and won't return my phone calls. I lost all my Instagram followers because of the drama and bad publicity from everything that happened. I'm working retail at a department store, making $9.50 an hour, and living in my childhood bedroom like I'm 17 years old again. Please, Blake, I'll do absolutely anything to make this right with Tyler and with you." "Anything at all?" I asked, wanting to make sure she understood the gravity of what she was saying. "Yes, absolutely anything you want me to do," she replied immediately. "I'll apologize to Tyler publicly in front of everyone who was at the party. I'll pay for his therapy sessions out of my own minimum wage paycheck if that's what it takes. I'll delete all my social media accounts permanently. I'll volunteer at charities that help children. Whatever you think is appropriate punishment for what I did to him." This was the moment I had been waiting for since the birthday party disaster. Chelsea finally understood that actions have real consequences in the adult world, and she was ready to face them properly instead of running to Daddy for protection. I told her exactly what she needed to do to even begin making things right with our family. First, she had to write a detailed public Facebook post taking full responsibility for what she did to Tyler, apologizing sincerely, and acknowledging that her behavior was completely unacceptable and harmful to a child. Second, she had to maintain steady employment for at least 1 full year and use her own money to pay for Tyler's therapy sessions to help him process the trauma. Third, she had to stay away from all family events and gatherings until Tyler himself decided he was ready to see her again, however long that might take. Fourth, she had to volunteer at least 25 hours per week at a local children's charity for a minimum of 8 months to learn how to interact with kids appropriately and understand the impact of adult behavior on children. Fifth, she had to complete a full year of professional counseling to address her narcissistic behavior and entitlement issues that had caused all these problems in the first place. And Chelsea, understand this clearly, I concluded. If you ever do anything to hurt my son again, if you ever make him uncomfortable or upset in any way whatsoever, what happened with the IRS will look like a gentle warning compared to what comes next. Do you understand me? She agreed to everything immediately without any negotiation or complaints. The Facebook post went live that same evening and got shared over 950 times with hundreds of comments from people in our community absolutely roasting Chelsea for her behavior toward a child. She's been working double shifts at the department store for 10 months now, attending therapy sessions twice a week, and volunteering at the children's hospital every single weekend without fail. Tyler's been in therapy for 6 months now and is doing much better than we initially expected after such a traumatic experience. He's back to his normal happy self, building robots and programming computers with the same passion and enthusiasm he had before the incident. Though he still gets a little anxious around surprise birthday celebrations, which is completely understandable given what happened to him at his own party. The therapist says he's processing the trauma very well and should be fine long-term, which is a huge relief for Jessica and me as parents. Chelsea has kept every single promise she made to me without exception. She's been working at the department store consistently for almost a year now, never missing shifts even when she's sick or tired. She hasn't missed a single therapy appointment in all this time, and she volunteers religiously at the children's hospital every weekend, working with kids who are dealing with serious medical issues. Most surprisingly, she hasn't posted anything on social media in almost a full year, which for someone who used to post multiple times daily is actually remarkable progress. The Facebook apology post she wrote was actually genuine and heartfelt, nothing like the fake performative content she used to post constantly for attention. She took complete responsibility for her actions without making any excuses or trying to minimize what she had done to Tyler. She acknowledged that she burned Tyler's face and traumatized him at his own birthday party in front of all his friends. She said she was getting professional help to address her behavior problems and that she understood completely if people never forgave her for what she had done. Hundreds of people from our community commented on that post, and most of them expressed genuine disgust at her original behavior toward a child. But a few people said they respected her for finally taking accountability and trying to make things right, even though it was long overdue. The post stayed up for months and served as a constant reminder to everyone of what happens when you hurt children in our community. Robert's business survived the IRS investigation, but just barely. He had to pay significant penalties and back taxes that nearly bankrupted him, but Derek actually helped him get on a payment plan that kept him from losing everything completely. The whole experience completely changed his perspective on Chelsea's behavior and his own role in creating the problem through years of enabling. He's been going to therapy too, working through his guilt about his late wife's death and learning how his enabling behavior actually created the monster Chelsea became. He calls me every few weeks now to check on Tyler and ask if there's anything he can do to help our family. It's honestly the first time in years we've had normal father-son conversations without Chelsea's drama dominating every interaction. Patricia has been surprisingly supportive through all of this chaos. She told me privately that she's actually relieved Chelsea finally faced real consequences for her behavior. She said she'd been walking on eggshells for years, afraid to speak up about Chelsea's actions because Robert would explode if anyone criticized his precious daughter. Now that the family dynamic has completely changed, Patricia feels like she can actually voice her opinions about family matters without fear of retaliation. She's been helping Chelsea with job applications and therapy homework, but also making it crystal clear that the old enabling behavior is never coming back. Patricia has become much more assertive about setting boundaries and expects Chelsea to handle her own problems like an adult. Dorothy, my badass grandmother, has been watching all this unfold with quiet satisfaction over the past year. She told me last month that she's proud of how I handled the entire situation from start to finish. "You protected your son and held people accountable for their actions," she said. "That's exactly what a good father should do when his family is threatened." She's actually considering putting Robert back in her will eventually, but only if he continues therapy and proves he's genuinely changed his enabling behavior permanently. Chelsea will never be reinstated in the will, though, and Dorothy has made that absolutely clear. "Some bridges can't be rebuilt," Dorothy said matter-of-factly, "and some lessons need to be permanent to really stick. The most important thing in all of this is how Tyler's doing as he recovers from the trauma. The kid bounced back stronger than I expected, and he's actually more confident now than he was before. He's not afraid to stand up for himself when other kids try to bully him or push him around. He still loves science and robotics just as much as before the incident, and his grades haven't suffered at all from the emotional stress. We had a small family birthday party for him this year, with just immediate family, and no extended relatives invited. No fancy custom cake this time, just a simple chocolate one from the grocery store that couldn't be ruined. But Tyler said it was perfect because nobody tried to destroy it or hurt him. That comment made me both happy and incredibly sad at the same time, because no kid should have to worry about adults hurting them at their own birthday celebration. Chelsea sent Tyler a birthday card this year through the mail rather than showing up in person. It was a simple card with a handwritten note, apologizing again for what she had done and expressing hope that he was doing well in school. She included a $50 gift card to the electronics store where he buys robot parts and programming supplies. The note said she understood completely if he didn't want to see her or have any relationship with her, but that she hoped someday he might give her a chance to prove she'd genuinely changed as a person. Tyler read the card carefully and thought about it for a long time before saying anything. Then he asked me, "Dad, do you think people can really change who they are?" I told him that some people can change if they're willing to do the hard work required, but that he should never feel pressured to forgive someone who hurt him just because they say they're sorry. Forgiveness has to be earned through consistent actions over time, not just words. As for me personally, I feel like I did exactly what I needed to do to protect my family. I protected my son from further harm, held my sister accountable for her actions, and forced my family to confront their toxic, enabling behavior that had been going on for decades. Some people think I went too far with the systematic destruction of Chelsea's lifestyle and financial situation. But you know what? She had every opportunity to make things right after hurting my son. All she had to do was write a simple apology letter after burning my kid's face at his birthday party. Instead, she doubled down on social media and played the victim while posting about toxic family members. The IRS investigation, the eviction, losing her car and lifestyle, all of that was just natural consequences of her own illegal behavior and choices. I didn't make her commit tax fraud for years. I didn't make her violate her lease agreement. I just helped make sure the right people found out about what she was already doing wrong. Derek says this was one of his most satisfying cases ever. Not because we destroyed someone's life out of pure spite, but because we held a privileged person accountable for their actions using completely legal methods and letting the system work exactly as it was intended. Most of the time, rich kids like Chelsea get away with everything because their parents have money and connections, he told me recently. It's actually rare to see real justice happen when entitled people hurt others. The whole experience taught me a tremendous amount about family dynamics and enabling behavior that I never fully understood before. I learned how one person's refusal to set proper boundaries can create absolute monsters who think they're above consequences. I saw firsthand how protecting someone from the natural results of their actions actually hurts them in the long run by preventing them from learning and growing. And I discovered that sometimes you have to be willing to burn bridges permanently to protect your children from harmful people, even when those people are family members. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat if someone hurt Tyler or threatened his well-being. My job as his father is to protect him from people who would cause him harm, regardless of their relationship to our family or their excuses for their behavior. These days, Chelsea and I have a very limited relationship that consists mainly of polite greetings at the few family events she's allowed to attend. We're never going to be close siblings again, and both of us understand that reality. That trust between us is permanently broken and can't be repaired with apologies or time. She seems to understand this new dynamic and doesn't push for more contact or try to force a relationship that neither of us really wants. She just keeps working on herself consistently and trying to prove through her actions that she's genuinely changed as a person. Maybe in a few more years, if she stays consistent with her therapy and volunteer work and continues taking responsibility for her actions, Tyler might be ready to have some kind of relationship with his aunt again. But that decision is completely his choice to make when he's ready, and I'll support whatever he decides. Robert and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship, but it's taken a lot of work and honest conversations about the past. He's genuinely trying to be a better father and grandfather after years of prioritizing Chelsea's wants over everyone else's needs. He comes to Tyler's robotics competitions now and asks thoughtful questions about his projects and programming work. Most importantly, he never once suggests that Tyler needs to toughen up or learn to take a joke anymore. The man finally learned that protecting children should always come first, no matter what. Looking back on the whole saga from start to finish, I'm genuinely proud of how I handled the situation. I stayed calm under extreme pressure, used completely legal methods to expose Chelsea's wrongdoing, and focused entirely on protecting my son from further harm. Chelsea learned that actions have real consequences in the adult world. Robert learned that enabling bad behavior actually hurts everyone involved, including the person being enabled. And Tyler learned that his father will always have his back when someone tries to hurt him. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's just letting people face the natural consequences of their own choices, and making sure those consequences actually stick this time instead of being swept under the rug. The moral of this entire story is simple. Don't mess with someone's kids and expect to get away with it, especially when that someone has military training, investigative resources, and a grandmother who doesn't tolerate bullshit from anyone. Chelsea thought she was completely untouchable because Daddy always protected her from consequences her entire life. She found out the hard way that the real world doesn't work like that, and some lessons cost a lot more than others. What are your thoughts on this situation? Did I go too far? Or do you think Chelsea got exactly what she deserved for hurting a child? Have you ever had to deal with entitled family members who think they can get away with anything?